Hi, sorry, we're gonna try this again. All right, so, hi everybody. Sorry, Wi-Fi connection went out on my end, but hopefully you guys will join me here. Coming back. Hello, hi there. Are you back? Let's see. Hello, hi. Sorry, didn't mean to drop out on you. Didn't mean to ghost you there, but hello, welcome back. Hello, Kinsey, hi there. Hi. There we go. Hi, welcome back. Sorry. Let's see if I can get Julia back in here. Hello. I'm sorry. My Wi-Fi quit on me. Had to switch Wi-Fi's. So, let's see if we can get Julia back here. Where did she go? Thank you for your understanding. I've lost my friend. Where'd she go? Yeah, the heat. My Wi-Fi melted. That's what happened. So let's see if we can get Julia back here. Here we go. I'm back. Where are you? There we go. So anyway, returning to the conversation of cold connections. So yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff that I can show you here, and one of the things is, let's see. Oh, and she got dumped out. So yes, Julia. So yeah, but what I was going to show you here, hello, is the rings and connections that are really kind of interesting, things you can do using rivets, screws, all kinds of joining processes. Yeah, there she is. Hello, there we go. Julia, bring it on back. Hi there, welcome back. Hi. Sorry, I think both of our Wi-Fi's quit.
Yeah, I switched. We have more than one Wi-Fi in my house, so I switched to the one that's closer to the phone.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I wasn't able to hear you before I joined, too. Like, I could see you, but I couldn't hear you. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, where it dropped out for me, and I think maybe for other people, was when you were talking about the person who didn't have a torch in her studio, and you just sew the rings together. And so I didn't get to see any of those rings. You held them up, and it like
froze.
Yeah. So, hi, Papo. Hola, Papo.
I switched Wi-Fi too, so hopefully this will be better.
Yeah, and clearer.
Yeah.
Better.
So what I was showing everybody before, and I'll just go back to this, is cold connections. This one's got a cold connection for the snap and for the hinge.
So the hinges, the tubing for the hinges wasn't soldered on?
This one was, yeah, but I have some that I've rolled it.
Right. That was like a mint pin.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So I've just like left this a little long and rolled the ends on it and created like a no solder joint on things like lockets. So, you can do stuff like this without any solder at all, which is kind of fun. And there's a lot of examples of, cold connections in a lot of like costume jewelry and things. Toys are another great place to look for inspiration, because a lot of like vintage tin toys have a lot of like tabs and folds and things that together with soldering. So if you have some old vintage tin toys, that's a great place to look for things like that. And yeah, Julie was just saying that she looked at Beth Piver's website. Beth Piver is amazing. Her work, when I was like back in Vermont many years ago, all of her rings, all of her work was done with folding, slotting, joining, rivets, and sewing. And so a lot of her stuff, I have some samples of my own stuff that are kind of in the same way that Beth was doing hers, where you would have, some decorative, sort of rivets and overlaps and sewn parts that would
Okay.
Lots of different things. And so, yeah, definitely check out her site, because it's really cool. Hey, Evie. So, doing things that are just like, really kind of bold, interesting rings that might have, a nice little rivet that is decorative, So if you don't want to be soldering at all, this is the time of year to experiment with that.
Right. You don't have to solder if you don't want to.
Yeah. So these are a couple more of my samples where I've sewn it with like red thread. And another gal, Jennifer Howard Kaczynski, does some really beautiful pieces where she's using like red silk thread.
Mm-hmm. With mica. But didn't she
Mica.
use mica?
Yeah.
Kathleen wants you to say, Beth, is it Piver?
Piver.
Piver. Piver. So
Yes.
is that the name you wanted, Kathleen? I think so. Beth Piver.
Yeah.
Piver.
Yeah. Beth Piver. Piver. And yeah, Google some of her rings and things. One of her, she was in the first Thousand Rings books.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
she was in that as well. And so anyway, but yeah, a lot of her, I mean, using like mesh and all kinds of really cool materials. So one of the cool things about doing cold connection is that you can use so many non-metallic materials to connect, right? You don't have to use metal. So you can be using like, leather and plastics and glass and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to experiment and even use, non-metallic materials to do your connections. So sewing is a great example of cold connection because it's all connected through stitchery, right? And you can do the same thing, joining non-metallic parts to metal parts, using thread or wire, whatever you use.
There are
So,
always still, there are always still tricks and tips that you like, if you're using thread to sew something onto metal, you need to make dang sure that the holes that you're going through in the metal are not sharp.
right.
Right? They have to be perfectly smooth because otherwise any movement with the thread in it basically wears the thread away.
Yeah.
As anyone who's ever lost a coat button can tell you.
Absolutely. So one of the things I do when I'm doing, one of my essential tools when I'm doing rivets is my set of ball burrs.
Mm-hmm.
Or either that or a bud burr and bud burrs are kind of nice because they are centering. They have a point, so they have a tendency to give you a really nice little countersunk smooth hole, which is great for rivets because if you're spreading out a rivet and you have to get it over that squared edge of the metal, it has to like push all the way down to hold it securely. And if you can countersink the hole for those rivets, it allows things to like settle in a little bit better, and it gives you a stronger connection. So I really like using something like a bud burr or a ball burr to clean up those holes. But I use those anytime I drill as well to clean up the hole. So it allows things like jump rings not to bind, in the hole as well. So,
You know what I use?
What do you use?
I just use a bigger drill bit.
Bigger drill bits. Yeah.
And I don't even put it in the drill. I just get a really big drill bit, put it in my hand or in a pin vise, and just super gently. You don't want to push too hard because you really just want to remove a little bit of metal from the chamfer, the hole. Yeah. If you want to do flush set rivets, you have to recess the hole.
Yeah. So what Julia's talking about, I'm going to grab a drill bit here if I can find one. That's bigger.
The cool thing is that all the drill bits have the same angle, and then whether they're big or small, it's 120 degrees or something. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. So anytime you drill a hole, you're going to end up with what I refer to as like that little bust out part on the back, which is what I refer to as a metal fart. Metal fart on the back. So where you have like a little burr from the metal that's pushed out. So what I'll always do is take, a bud burr or a ball burr or a bigger drill bit, and then just center it in the hole and just shave those little burrs off the backside. And so it cleans it up and just makes it look really good. Yeah. So, yeah.
It doesn't have to be a much bigger, it just has to be bigger drill bit than the hole. And you can use a really big drill bit, so you have a really big one that works for any hole, because we come to the same angle all at the center and it'll just cut wherever your hole is. So,
I try to not do like one or two sizes up because I don't want to accidentally make the hole bigger.
Right. You want it discernibly larger.
Yes. Yeah, because I just want to shave off the burr that was on there.
The part. Shave off the part. Part shaving.
Part shaving, yes, exactly. But it does give you this like really nice little shiny mitered finish on the hole, which it looks better than just a straight drilled hole, and it's not.
Anyway, I mean, even if you're having a hole that a jump ring is going through, it kind of gives it a more finished look, even if you're not putting a rivet in it. So
Exactly right. Yeah. So if I'm doing flush setting or anything like that, I'll always finish the back like that. Absolutely.
oh yeah.
But okay, so rivet options. So rivet options. You've got a bunch too. All right. So I've got all my little samples. So one of my favorite rivet options many years ago, is using little teeny tube rivets or little tube rivets like that when you're joining like 20 gauge metals together and you're just like ding, 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 I just need something to rivet those parts together and I need it quick. So instead of having to cut all that tubing and cut all that wire, cut all those parts, you can actually use crimp beads.
This is one of your fabulous tips. I learned this from you, and I was just like, right?
Yeah.
They're little pieces of tubing that come pre-cut.
Yeah, they're pre-cut, and if you get them like the 1x2s or 2x2s, that is exactly the right thickness that you need to put two pieces of like 20 gauge together. It's just perfect. And there was a student I had many years ago, and her name is like not in my head right now, but she used to own a company called Objects and Elements, and they sold all these great little parts and things. And she was doing a lot of her cold connections that way. And I was like, that's brilliant. And she said, they're always square. You don't have to worry about them not being square. They're all exactly the right size. You can get them in every color of metal that you want. So if you want them in, brass or finished or like an antique brass or silver or gold fill or gold or, whatever you want, you can get them in all those different metals, copper and everything else. And so you can get crimp beads to accent whatever color you're working with or to blend with whatever color you're working with. And a lot of times she was using those as not just as functional rivets, but as a hole for her finding to go through for like the bail for her necklaces. And
it's basically putting the crimp bead and flaring it out to make a tube rivet so that she made a decorative hole.
Right.
Rather than just a plain hole. It's like it's a lined hole. So it's all decorative and special for a jump ring or an ear wire to go through. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it always gave you like this really beautiful, kind of connection. But this is done with a crimp bead, silver crimp bead, and so is that teeny tiny one. So, I mean,
they're thin metal too, right? So they bend over really easily. But this is perfect for a tube rivet because, it doesn't have to be very thick to be strong because you got a whole circle.
Yeah. And you can pick up crimp beads from any place. You can get them from, the bead store. You can get them at craft stores a lot of times. And so, any place that carries like beading supplies, not just jewelry supplies, will usually carry crimp beads of, all kinds of colors and shapes and sizes. So you've got lots and lots of options for a built-in rivet that works great. Right? Crimp beads.
Crimp beads.
They're just absolutely perfect. Nina, hello. So yeah, I definitely recommend crimp beads. So yeah, functional and not. But I also have these like industrial rivets that I just love that are like aluminum, and they're big and flat and crazy looking. So if I'm using, not precious materials, they make a great, rivet.
Is that actually a pop rivet?
Yeah.
Do you have like a pop rivet? Do you have a pop rivet gun that like pop?
No,
this is so fun.
It's like the leftover part from that. So I don't have the pop rivet gun. But what I do is I'll just hammer it with my ball peen hammer on the back. Yep. Yay! The crimp beads. Salty Zen Designs. Wow, I know, right? It was such a crazy thing. The other thing I really like are optical screws, or like tiny parts screws, and those work really great. And you can get like little tiny nuts and bolts from Tiny Parts. You can get them from a lot of optical suppliers.
Does Reactive Metals still carry them?
Reactive Metals carried them for a long time. I'm sure still do. And you can get like little threaded nuts and bolts from them. And
They carried ones in niobium and
yeah,
titanium, so you could anodize them, and then they would be like super spectacular colors as well.
right. But if you're getting them from like optical supply places, you can actually get them in like stainless steel, gold plated, all kinds of
Oh,
different
sure, because your glasses
sized.
frames are going to
Yes,
be, yeah, sure.
absolutely. So you can get all kinds of different finishes and decorative rivets from a lot of optical supply places. And if you look for like decorative rivets for optical stuff on like eBay and places like that, you can get some pretty crazy stuff. So
Cool.
they have like little moons or flowers and things like that. That
Oh,
are just,
nice. Okay, you are always a wealth of tips.
so yeah, but red anodized. Those are from Joanne Fabrics, So, yeah. But I love using like rivets to do like cold connections for stone settings. So that's all cold connected and sort of dapped up. So nothing on this was, the only thing that was soldered on was the wire for the binding, but all that's riveted together. So it's got like the little rivets there and holding the couple of parts that are holding the eye together. But
so is the eye, so the eye is, it's like a volcano setting,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Where you've dapped it to push it up, and then the eye is bigger than the hole that it's poking through.
right. So it's got like it's dapped up, so it's got like a lid on the top and the bottom, and then filed, so it sort of comes to like an almond shape. But yeah, it's you kind of see it.
Cool.
There.
I
Anyway,
like your fancy chicken,
I know,
or whatever he is.
like a little peregrine falcon. Is what it was going to be.
Huh?
So, anyway,
Sorry. I'm dissing the falcon and calling it a chicken. What's
That's
wrong
okay.
with me? What is wrong with me?
You know, that's
Can't you
okay.
recognize a falcon, Julia?
I have to see. I have to tell you, I saw not too long ago, Jason and I saw this bird that was on the rooftop, and it was like the most majestic bird you've ever seen. And I was like, is that a hawk or a falcon? I'm like, what is that thing? And because it was just like, hello, I'm the most fantastic creature that's ever existed. And as we got closer, because the sun was behind it, as we got closer, we kind of looked to see what it was. It was a pigeon. And I'm like, that's the most majestic pigeon I've ever seen. Like on that roof, like he was owning it. He was owning it. So it's all about
that's hilarious.
all about presentation. So anyway,
All about presentation.
yeah. But yeah, so using like that's one of the crimp beads used as a rivet for stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, what are you using? What's your favorite tip?
Well, this is actually a sampler that I made in a class with a wonderful woman named Loran Scruggs, who is actually local, and I need to get in touch with her and see if maybe she'd like to teach a class for Little Mouse Boxes, because I loved taking this class with her. This was at the Pratt, and so it was a little book that I made, and the whole idea was like, we actually did this. So she taught us how to, do a spiral bind, because that's a cold connection, right? But then the front of it is a whole series of different, like there are, 4 or 5 different kinds of rivets on here. This was a piece of a CD that I sawed, and then I had rivets holding it down. But this piece here, this is actually one of my favorites, and you don't see this one very often. It's dimpled. So this is 2 pieces of metal that are, it's like the seam on a pair of jeans. It's like a French seam on a pair of jeans, right? They're exactly like what you're doing with your hands. They're folded together. And then once you've folded them together, you just take a center punch and you go boink, 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 boink. And then they are together forever and they will never come apart.
That'd be great for things like boxes and
yeah, exactly. You do have to do it on a flat. You have to do it on a flat surface, but you could bend it afterwards, right? So you could take this part where the seam is, and here's the edge of one piece,
right?
And you could fold it once you're done, as long as you don't fold the dimpled part away. And then this piece here, this section here, is a slot and tab. So it basically it just comes around like that, and then it's just tabs through
Yeah.
the, so this is what you're talking about with the tin toys.
Yeah.
Tin toys classically are made with this kind of, they basically poke two things through and then it's like a staple.
Yeah.
And staples are called connections. That actually is what,
Anson
there are
was saying,
two little pieces of
bracelet.
wire holding this on. And
Yeah,
on the back, you can see they're
Yeah.
staples.
Anson says that's great for bracelets. You're the one that's the dimple joint. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great for bracelets. Yeah. Because you could easily do it and put it on like a bracelet mandrel.
Right. And then bend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I mean, like bend it around the bracelet mandrel and connect it and then hammer it on the bracelet. Yeah. So you could actually do it that way. So yeah, that's one of the things about like, with like rings and things that are round, like bracelets, is that you have to have like the mandrel, like set your rivet on one side on the inside, and then the mandrel's holding it as you shove the ring on, and then you set the rivet on the outside. So
you have to flare the rivet somehow and then put it through the hole and then flare the rivet on the other side, with the mandrel holding it in place. But the good news about that is the mandrel's holding it in place, because one of the things that's most annoying about cold connections is the little rivets falling out.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I like about doing it for rings, because once you get that mandrel in there, the rivet isn't going to go anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Right.
So yeah, it makes it actually a lot easier to set, I think, rivets on things like bracelets, especially if you've got like a tapered mandrel that slips in, because it's wedged in so tight, it's not going to go anyplace. And as you set the rivet, it sort of like slides up that fit, so it makes it just that much tighter. But yeah, I love that about like little rings when you're doing rivets. The one thing I do, and I always flare the inside or countersink the inside of the ring before I set the rivet in there, because you want to smooth it down, and so I'm doing like a flush rivet in there.
Yes, that's actually really important, because you would be surprised. You think that little nubbin on the inside, if you had a head on the rivet, wouldn't bother you. But it actually does, because it applies enough pressure to the skin that in just one spot that it will actually, make a wound, be irritating.
And not just that, but if you're wearing it down, if that rivet wears down,
then it can fall out.
If you don't have it countersunk on the inside, it will fall out. So
and that's bad.
Yeah, so you've got to have it countersunk on the inside, set the rivet, and then but
you have to do that. You have to drill that hole and countersink that, and flare, chamfer that hole while it's flat.
Yeah.
Before you roll the ring up to put the.
I also do it after the bulber.
That's true. You can get in there with a bulber. That's true. If you're doing my technique with the big drill bit, you have to do it while it's still flat.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to come up with the bulber.
So much. Bulbers are the workhorse of the studio. I love them. So here's one that I've got that I've had for a very long time that I like a lot. That's like slotted.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's got like the slot and tab here, where it like pops through on the back, but these are cut out wide enough so and deep enough so that I can bend the tab over so it's flush with the surface here.
Right.
And these are just bent around the outside as a sample, but so you can kind of see like 3 different examples of how you can kind of join that onto the surface.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do like doing stone setting though with rivets and cold connections, because you can get a lot of stuff done really beautifully. So you can, create a little capture setting using rivets, capture your little stones in there. There's one, and it's got a little lifesaver on the back. It's holding the stone in place on the front. So there's all kinds of ways you can do like cold connections to hold stones too. So yeah, you've got all kinds of options there. But whether you're sewing or riveting, one of the other cold connections that's really nice, that's used more in industrial stuff than it is in like the everyday jewelry stuff, is threads and threading a screw. And I got to tell you, man, this is one of the best tricks when you're trying to sort of secret things together in a way where people can't see exactly how you did it. or you want to get something really nice and tight that you can undo later if you have to, or just as a catch that screws and unscrews.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get, tap and dies that are like watchmaker size that are very small, but
Yep.
even small hardware sizes can work for the jewelry stuff.
And
So
you could get them, a lot of them you could get them in brass, and then you could solder them to something if you
right,
needed to.
yeah, exactly, right,
I
yeah,
know Lori Talcott talks about using tap and dies, using little screws in some of her work, because if a house falls on it, she can take it apart and remake it,
right,
and fix
right.
it.
And I really like the look of some of the little optical screws and things like that in my work. And I've used them a lot in my work previously. I was looking for an example. Here's one, a cold connected piece, the one that I had that I was showing in the little bumper beforehand. But
Mm-hmm.
this one, because it's all plastics, you can't solder plastics, a lot of the found objects, the lens and things like that. So all of this is all cold connected. And I've got a kinetic, whoops, there it goes, it's very kinetic, rivet that makes the little wheel go on the bottom. There we go.
Nice.
And pin bindings, cold connections, right? There you go. Get a little pin on the back, cold connection, right? So, yeah, they're highly underestimated and underrated, the little things you can do with cold connections. So this one I've got on the front, it's a decorative rivet going all the way down. And on the back, I've got sort of the spine of the piece and the rivets coming through. So that actually holds this whole piece holds it all together. And then the piece on the bottom is riveted through.
Nice. Yeah. It actually, honestly, peeps, if you can do good cold connections, it's a testament to the precision and quality of your fabrication skills. Because cold connections, people think, I'm just going to slam this rivet in here and it's going to hold it together. And it's like, you can actually make a rivet loose by doing it wrong, with the wrong size materials and whatnot.
Right.
So having things that are precise and that are tight and sharp and crisp and well aligned is actually non-trivial and is a lot harder than people think it is. So being able to master a good rivet is good. It's like, okay, that's a feather you can put in your cap, because
it's simple but can be made. There's so many things you can do with them that, whether you're doing like a mechanical joint that can move, or something as simple as putting two sheets together, it allows you infinite possibilities with connecting things that are metal and non-metal, or there's so many things you can use it for. So, whether it is something like a mechanism, like a hinge, or, a pin stem, or an earring finding, or, something or a bail, all of those cold connections allow the piece to move and function and be worn, and
conform to your body better. Yeah.
So, once you start kind of looking around for things that are done as cold connections, you'll start seeing them every place. Because it's like, countertops, or counter, poles. And sitting here looking around me, I'm like nail clippers and pliers and zippers, and like all of those are a cold connection. So what you do with it is, it's infinite. It's used in so many different ways, So Julia's going to be doing the kinetic rivets class coming up. What's the date on that, Julia?
I don't know, because I did not think to bring my iPad in with me, and so I don't know. This is one of the things that's it's my little boxing glove. Yeah.
Let's see. Check the dates on it. But yeah, just doing good rivets. Let's see. We've got cold connection.
This one has a ton of rivets in it. This one actually has a couple of different kinds of cold connections in, because it has rivets in it, and then this is sewn on. So I had little holes that I drilled in the copper and just sewed the little miniature boxing glove onto the copper. And then I also made little
It's August 14th is
little scissors.
your cold connection.
August 14th. Julie Julie I think is in that class, aren't you? I think. Sorry, don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Good job, Julie.
I think somebody signed up for it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well,
Several
and
people
the
got it.
other class that's a good cold connection class, and understanding, some of the basics of what cold connection is and how it works in a functional kinetic way, or spinner fidget rings.
Right.
And that's going to be on the 31st. So
that's coming up this coming weekend. So
weekend.
so fidget rings, you're right. It is a cold connection. It's like, one ring and another ring. And of course, my studio is in a complete state right now because we just had some electrical work done on the house. So I know there's some fidget rings here. There's some spinner rings here in the studio. Don't know where they are.
Yeah.
But I will find them before Saturday.
All of our classes, to answer your question, all the classes are online. We have had people from Australia, from Japan, from the UK, from Canada, from Venezuela have taken classes with us because you can do them online, and you've got 30 days access to the video after the class as well. So it's a good way, if you sit in, you can contribute in the class, you can ask your questions, you can work alongside, and you're welcome. And the cool thing is that you can go back later and rewatch the parts that you may have missed or not understood, and take screenshots and add them to your handout. The handouts are always really thorough. So you've got access to us afterwards. So you can email us and ask questions, and we love to share student work. So anytime somebody tags us and lets us know that they've got pictures of stuff they've been working on or samples they were working on, we love to share that and give you a shout out too. So
we made an active choice to have our classes always be live online because we want you to be able to ask questions in the moment, right? So we don't want to make you save your questions up and have to ask them after you've watched the video. So that's valuable too. If you watch the video and you've practiced it and you've tried it and you're running into issues, then you can always email us. We are totally available. But we love the interactive process of the live online classes, not just with our students, but between students. So getting a chance to hear other people's questions can be as informative as being able to ask your own directly, because you can hear what somebody else is asking and you're like, ooh, then the follow-up question, and then it's really fun,
and it gives you a chance to learn exponentially because you're not just learning from whoever's teaching the class, but you're learning from everybody else too. If everybody's interacting and talking and making a contribution to the class by asking questions, and a lot of people have different resources than we do. So if you're in Australia or the UK or Canada or Venezuela, you may have access and information to other places that you can get stuff that we don't have. And that's always valuable too, to share information. So it's just, we wanted to make sure that people that were, isolated in different places were, being, in lockdown, all had access to being able to still continue doing workshops and classes and building their studios and working safely and all that. But still having that interaction with people as best we can. But being all over the place, and that's something that
you have a global community. This is really fun. Yeah. I mean, I've learned so much from I moved to Seattle in '96, and I didn't know anybody except my then boyfriend, now husband. And I took a class at the Pratt Fine Arts Center with Virginia Causey. Shout out to Virginia Causey. It was my first metals class. And she suggested that I join the Seattle Metals Guild, and I did. And it's through the Seattle Metals Guild that I've met many dear friends, Jennifer chief among them. And so, it's like if you don't have something like the Seattle Metals Guild in your area, come be part of the Fox Den, because we are here, and we want all of you to be able to get your questions answered and make friends and learn from each other and from us. And, that's what it's all about.
But, getting back to cold connection, you've got 2 classes coming up that are great for cold connections. One's ring-based and one is kinetic motion-based things. And you also teach the boxes and lockets,
Right.
and that is also, doing hinges is also another type of core connection. But I got to tell you, if I was not able to do that, I would not be able to make the pieces that I do.
Mhm.
Stone setting is a type of cold connection. Rivets are a type of cold connection. And there's so many ways that that's applicable to what you're doing that you may not even realize it until you start taking a couple of classes and doing cold joining. And you're like, oh, that's how that's done. So, yeah, that's how that's done. Little rivets and cold connections and friction fitting and all kinds of crazy things. So yeah, yeah. Let's see. I love the classes, but I really love when when I can be part of the live class. Yes, Robin, we love you being in the classes too. So that's always great when we've got people that are have taken multiple classes, and it has created a
Mhm.
really wonderful community because a lot of people have made friends in the classes like you normally would, which is also another benefit. But yeah, cold connections. Now's the time of year
Totally.
to work on those.
Totally.
Yeah, it's too hot. Too
Too
hot.
hot. Too hot to solder.
Too hot for
That's
wax
a close
working. Thank
connection.
God I've got the air conditioner, or I wouldn't be able to do wax working. But
I
yeah.
know Helen was Helen, the other little metal fox, was in London, and they were having a heat wave, but right before we had ours, and she was in her studio with her kiln on, right, cooking her glass, firing her glass. I'm just like, oh my god, that's a level of dedication that I would just be like, okay, nope, I'm not going to be doing
Yeah.
that today.
So yeah, working on glass. Actually, one of the pieces that I'm working on right now is a piece of Helen's glass with a cold connection, and it's setting stone in stone, which is a type of cold connection. So
Ooh,
I've
oh,
got
that's gorgeous.
glass, and then I've got a little. It's still, I don't want to tip it forward too far because I know the peridot will fall out, but that's going to be riveted through the back. There we go.
Nice.
Once it's all done. So yeah, but that's going to be a pendant that I'm taking to London. So hopefully she won't watch this. I can surprise her. But if she is watching this, hi Helen, guess what you're getting? So anyway, a little birthday present.
Anticipation is always fun too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, doing things like that, like stone on stone setting,
Mhm.
and where you're setting something inside of something else. You can't do that
You
with
can't
solder.
do it except, yeah, you can't do it. You can't solder a stone to a stone. You can glue it, but that has, that's, it's tricky.
I'm a spectacular gluesmith as well. So, gluesmithing, it's a skill. It's an art
So
form.
you're a big fan of the this to that website, the one that
Yes,
like
yes.
sticking this to that.
Fantastic for all kinds of gluing situations. Yeah, but yeah. What else have you? Let's see. What else do we have coming up?
Like I
Um,
said, I didn't. The only thing I brought into my studio was my phone, so I was like,
that's okay.
"Ooh,
I've got it. I've got it. So your fidget and spinner rings are coming up on July 20 or 31st.
this coming weekend, yeah."
This coming weekend. You've also got Electro Etching coming
Oh,
up,
that's right.
people. Electro Etching is coming
I
up.
know all of you people who've been asking me to do electro etching again. It's on the
Yes,
schedule.
there you go. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So Electro Etching is coming up. Kinetic Rivets, which we're talking about tonight, is August 14th. And the knot ring class is coming up on August 20th. And then Helen is going to be doing one of her classes, Introduction to Glass Clay for Jewelry. And let me tell you, people, nobody else is teaching that. So,
I
if
know
you,
it's super cool. It's a brand new
it's
product, isn't it?
amazing. It's kind of new. It's definitely new in the jewelry world. It's been around in the glass world for a little while, but basically it's like PMC, where you have like a clay that has metal particles in it. This is kind of a clay that's got glass particles in it, and you can fuse it together and mold it and shape it and put it into a mold and do all kinds of crazy stuff with it and get shaped fused glass pieces that you can use as a uh, parts of pendants and parts of jewelry and all kinds of crazy things. So, dear Gluesmith, which glue to use on an old-found tar bits to connect it to silver? Okay, first of all, I would probably, it depends on how old the tar bits are, but I would probably see if I could like pin it through like creating like half-drilled holes so that you can pin it and glue it. And I would probably be using an epoxy for that, like a 2-part 5-minute epoxy, Kathleen. But the website this to that does not. I don't think it has tiny old found tar bits. I don't know if that's an option on the but. Yeah, I would try, a 5-minute 2-part epoxy is kind of my go-to for stuff like that. But if I can find a mechanical way to like poke holes in it and then glue it, it gives you a more solid connection as well.
It's like a half-drilled pearl and
Yeah.
putting the glue on that. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
In general, my understanding has always been that a 2-part glue is stronger than a 1-part glue. Right. So if you
generally that's true. Yeah.
Right. So if you have like 2-part epoxy and you have to mix the two and then you have a limited amount of time before it still hardens up, then,
right.
then that usually is a stronger, more longer lasting, has a longer lifespan glue than the glue that's like in a tube and you just use it.
And many times with a lot of different types of glues, the thing you have to do not only is find the right glue for what you're going to stick together that works for both parts, but you may want to have to coat the surface, let that cure, and then glue the parts together, because the glue sometimes will bond to the thing that it's on really well, and it will always glue to itself beautifully. So if you have something like 2-part epoxy, you can sort of like line those parts, make sure that it's going to stick and stay where it needs to stick, and then use the epoxy to do that. So for things that are like porous, kind of working it in to the material first and then gluing it always works better. So yeah. There you go. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm explaining things. Good. Oh, you're welcome, Julie. We'll see you later. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've got a bunch of fun classes coming up. Helen and I, here's a fantastic little bit we're very excited about. While I'll be here next week, and we have a pretty fun announcement that we're going to have. Hopefully, we're going to be meeting with, if you haven't seen, All That Glitters, with which is the British version of jewelry version of like the Great Bake Off, but it's with jewelry. So if you haven't seen All That Glitters and you really like the Great British Baking Show, this is a combination of those two things. So it's making jewelry, Great British Baking Show. There you go. So, but it's BBC One produced it, and it is on HBO, and you can find it on YouTube as well. Hopefully we're going to be able to meet with one, if not two, of the finalists and a semi-quarterfinalist for our while I'm over in London. So Helen and I are going to go to Wales, and hopefully we can meet with one of the people, one
of the contestants. I know. I'm so envious. I'm looking forward to Foxes Abroad. Foxes in Wales.
And I'm hoping we can have that do a tooltip from the UK. So, yeah, kind of hear about that experience a little bit. So that's kind of what's coming up in the next couple of weeks with Tool Talk. And yeah, so there you go.
Well, thank you guys for being with us tonight, all the way from Australia. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And, jump in, anytime, DM us and let us know if you have questions or if you have a tooltip that you'd like us to do. And if you missed any of the tooltips, of course, they're here on Instagram. But if you're isolated and you want to binge tooltips and you think we're awesome, because we are, our YouTube channel has all of those there. So check out Little Metal Fox's YouTube channel. All of our tooltips are there, plus other bonus content. And there you go. So,
and you can always, if we didn't answer your question tonight, or we didn't answer your question in one of the previous tooltips, you can always email us at info@littlemetalfoxes.com. We all three see it, and one of us will answer.
there you go. And don't be afraid to play and experiment. So,
Anyway,
hearts to everybody, and we will see you later. Thank you, Julia.
thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about kinetic rivets and rivets in general, Julia is awesome. So 2 classes coming up on that. All right. Thanks, Julia. Yeah.
All right.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.